Hi everyone, welcome to this second installment of our series of how to secure remote users, users working from home or branch offices, how to connect them with your FreePBX or PBXact server. The first installment was propose a solution using Session Border Controller. Today's session we'll be proposing how to do this with a built-in VPN server as well as a VPN client built in our phones. And we'll go, same as we did last time, we will go through, quick setup slides, but also going through a demo. I'm Frederick Dickey. I will be doing the early part of the presentation. I run all of professional services at Sangoma, and the bulk of the presentation will be done by Ernesto, who's our resident top sales engineer at Sangoma. Okay, so quick agenda today. We'll do a quick recap of last December session, and then the part two will just deep dive into using VPN tunnels to implement secure remote communications between your users, mobile users, and your PBX, and Q&A throughout the session. So what we said last time is that these days, right, any size office, any size company will have a set of employees that are either traveling or working from home or will have a small branch office, and they're all, to some degree, all of them, you have to provide them with their business communications capabilities, access to their voicemail, maybe being able to use their extension, even if they're on the road. Okay. One issue with doing that is using voice over IP or SIP doesn't really traverse firewalls. Firewalls are everywhere for data networks, and they protect, for threats that are coming out from the outside, but that doesn't work really well when you want to implement voice over IP over these data networks. So you need to do special things for your voice over IP communications. One of the things is you could simply just open up specific ports in your firewall, but that creates other threats for your data network. So in this series of webinars, we're proposing 3 different methods. And like I mentioned earlier, the first method we proposed last month in the first installment of this was using between your phone that's sitting in a remote area, use the encrypted voice over IP, which is SRTP, and encrypted SIP, which is TLS, between the phone and a session border controller or an SBC that's installed at the corporate office. Okay, so we went through that and showed how it was secure and how you could auto-configure your phones and use your remote phones as if they were regular extensions off of your PBX. Okay, today, like I said, we're going to use a VPN infrastructure. Okay, and the way we're going to demo this is we're going to show with the Sangoma IP phones, which come with their own VPN client on board the phone, and we will show also how to use the built-in VPN server that comes with FreePBX or PBXact. In the case of FreePBX, the VPN server, you need to purchase the option that we call System Admin Pro, SysAdmin Pro. That's $25, okay, and that will open up a bunch of features, including the VPN server. In the case of PBXact, our VPN server is part of the base software. And then in about 2 weeks time frame, January 24th, we'll do a third method, which is direct TLS and SRTP between the phone and the PBX. Next slide, please. So quick architecture for phase 1 for the first part of this webinar. We showed, the top and left side of the screen shows various types of remote users that are outside the company firewall. They might have a Sangoma phone, they might have a soft phone running on a mobile, they might have a soft phone running on their computer, and they're all trying to get access to the PBX, by registering or getting their extension details or accessing voicemail or whatever. So in this network, what we're showing is all these red arrows where, we were encrypting the SIP and the RTP into TLS and SRTP, and the first thing it hit is in SBC, and the SBC does all the call admission control and the security and denial of service and all these sort of security aspects, as well as decoding the TLS and SRTP to go back to the normal SIP and UDP traffic that you can see on that blue arrow that's running between the SBC and PBXact. Okay, so that was part one. In the case of part two, so we're gonna, which is the middle drawing here, what we're gonna do is turn on a VPN server inside the PBXact demo we're running for this, and we're gonna set up the VPN client to register, to authenticate through this VPN server before accessing the local network. So with that, I'll leave it to in the good hands of Ernesto. Ernesto?
Thank you, Frederick.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Ernesto Casas. I'm part of the pre-sales engineering team. I work for Frederick's group. And what we're going to do today is very similar to what we did in the previous session. We're going to go through step-by-step configuration process in order to implement the VPN solution. As Frederick said already, there are several challenges when we are doing a deployment, voice over IP deployment, where we have users accessing the services via or from public networks or trespassing through public networks. One of them is far end not transversal. There is from the networking perspective, using VPNs is a typical or traditional way to go through the firewalls and avoid any NATing on the packets. Voice over SIP is a very complicated protocol to do NATing because there is a lot of higher layers associated to IP addresses and things like that. So the typical problem is one-way audios and this type of thing. The other is to protect the voice over IP infrastructure, right? Meaning that we are going to find ways to avoid anyone from a public network to be able to access our telephony infrastructure. And not only in terms of the potential threats and to use the infrastructure, but also to shoot down the infrastructure, or even worse, to tap into the content of the conversations and record and things like that. The other typical challenge is the more we put applications inside our voice over IP infrastructure, or let's call it a soft switch or VoIP server, to avoid these type of situations, the less resources we're going to have to provide the traditional or typical or required service on the end user side. So that's another challenge. It's a balance that we have to take in account when we are doing the capacity planning of our infrastructure, right? So there are several VPN options, and one, of course, is the traditional VPN implemented has a networking infrastructure. Some corporations may have already implemented the VPNs, and they have already the VPN termination server on their corporate office, and the VPN clients already pre-installed and configured at the router level on the branch offices. But those are typical corporate environments. Most of the traditional deployments on at the enterprise level, even on the small business, they don't have control of, or they don't have the privilege to install or configure routers that are provided by a service provider, right? And also, sometimes they don't have the skills to start deploying specific additional devices to be implemented on the branch offices, or even if you have a an employee working from home, you ship the phone, and then you ship the phone and a router, and that's a lot of challenges there. So in our case, what we are proposing or we're providing to the market is all this VPN infrastructure is going to be built in on the same voice over IP infrastructure. So there is one VPN server side that is going to be residing inside the PBX, and there is one VPN client that is going to be installed on the phones. So our phones and our the FreePBX and PBXact already have that built in. So the use case is going to be something like this, very similar in terms of the layout of what we had in the previous session. But now instead of having two devices on the corporate side or on the data center, we have only one device, which is in this demo case, it's going to be PBXact, but it could be FreePBX or PBXact, which has the built-in VPN server. And on the user side, on the endpoint side, we're going to take advantage of the existing VPN client already built in our Sangoma phones, but also because we are using open standards VPN solutions, we're going to provide, and even we're going to show you how to self-service from the user perspective, the client software that needs to be installed and the client credentials that need to be installed on any other device, like a soft phone on Android or a soft phone on a Mac OS or Windows or whatever you need. So all of this has been taken into account. How VPN will help on remote secure users? We are doing one step forward besides just providing the VPN connectivity to the phone. And in some typical cases, we're going to have small offices or even a home office where the end user needs also to access the VPN, the corporate network, to access some other applications. In this case, we're going to show how the VPN client inside the phone can take advantage of some routing capabilities that are already built in on the phone to provide the VPN gateway between the local network on the endpoint side and the corporate LAN. So it's going to be a VPN client running on the phone that is also providing via the second Ethernet port on the phone access to, let's say, a laptop or a desktop at the end user premise. And more or less, this is what we have on the lab right now. We have a server, we have an appliance, a Sangoma appliance with the in our case, a PBXact pre-installed, and we have only one Ethernet port connected to the local network in a specific private IP address, and we have a router, and we have a router firewall, and we have a public IP address associated one-to-one to this internal IP address. Okay, so this is going to be our public IP address. This is the IP address where the phones are going to point, has a termination point for the VPN tunnel. And we are also going to use a domain that is a FQDN that resolves this IP address. Okay, so the VPN server is going to be running inside the appliance, and the VPN client and credentials are going to be residing on the phones. We're going to show also that from the management perspective, you're going to have all the tools inside the PBX to manage the credentials, the IP addresses, etc., to be provided to the specific endpoints. So FreePBX PBXact has built-in VPN capabilities. As I mentioned already, there is a VPN server. It's running OpenVPN, so based on open standards using SSL encryption. is part of the FreePBX or PBXact pre-installed software or part of the software that came with the distro, fully integrated with the GUI, and we're going to see exactly how it's integrated on the GUI, on the management interface. Very easy to set up. All the certificates and SSL certificates needed are already installed. And also, it includes all the tools that you need to manage the client side. The VPN client is a component already on our phones, or the server provides the client credentials as well as how to install a specific client software for different platforms. But the phones per se already have the client software installed, and the way to download the credentials to set up the tunnels. Any client is going to be associated to a user. On the PBX infrastructure, the FreePBX and PBXact, you have two elements that represent an end user: the user per se and the extension numbers. A user could have several additional resources besides the extension. So in order to understand this, VPN credentials will be always associated to the user. And that gives you the advantage that the user can decide, for example, where to use the client. He can have even more than one credential associated to the same user, one for his phone and another one for his soft phone on the mobile, or for the laptop when he's traveling. It's fully integrated in the Sangoma phones, as I said. And also, there is a component which is the routing capabilities built in on the phone that will allow you to extend the VPN reach to whatever you connect on the PC port of the phone. So it goes just beyond telephony service. So you can use that as a way to provide VPN access to applications or other servers inside your corporation. And also, there is a self-service functionality embedded into what we call the UCP, which is the user control panel. It's the web interface to the user account. Every user on the phone system has a user account. So let's explain how it works, how it needs to be configured. So from the VPN server configuration, one of the challenges or one of the goals we have here is to still allow to do zero-touch provisioning, including the VPN setup. So the goal here is to be able to ship a phone to an employee, to his house, to his home address, and he just unpack the phone, plug it into his LAN, and voila, it should work, auto provision, and set up the VPN. And that we're going to show how it works. So that includes also enabling the DHCP capabilities inside the phone and the routing capabilities. Okay, from this point on, I'm going to be switching between the slides and the real live lab that we have here. Okay, the system admin is the main interface for some of the high-level management functionalities. As we said, the VPN server is free. It needs to have system admin, what we call the system admin pro. That is already included into most of our appliances on the PBXact appliances. That's a part of it. But in the worst case scenario, if you need to download the distro and load it in your own server, the SysAdmin Pro has a license of 25 years for $25. So it's not, it's less than a week in a Starbucks. In any case, if we go to the interface, System Admin is located on the Admin section. I can just go here. When you have the System Admin Pro, you have several additional functionalities. besides the VPN server interface to do the VPN configuration, but also things like manage the updates and upgrades. When we move from a major version to another major version, you're going to be able to update directly here with all the scripts already done. So you don't need to do major things. It's totally automated. But in any case, what we want to see here is the VPN server. So if I click on the VPN server, you're going to see this is the management interface for the server side. And you have two tags here, the settings and the clients. The settings is basically a few basic parameters. One is there are some default values. This is the default value, but you can change it. This is the pool of IP addresses that are going to be used to build the tunnels. So any tunnel is going to be built between the address IP, for example, in this case, it's going to be 10.0.0.1 and the 10.0.0.x, whatever the number has been assigned to the specific connection. You can enable or disable the server. And here you're going to need to put the public IP address. Remember the one that I showed at the beginning? This is going to be the public IP address where all the phones or all the VPN clients are going to look like, are going to look for terminating the VPN tunnel. Enabling the redirect gateway will allow also that any device connected through the VPN will use as a default route the corporate network. Okay, it's going to redirect all the traffic through the corporation. So you can enable or disable that. And those parameters here are automatically generated, which is the IP networks that has been discovered by the PBX that he has access to. Okay, this is the routing table. On the client side, you're going to see that we already have a few lines. Each one of these lines represents a client credentials, configuration for a specific client. So you can have as many clients as you want. You can add more clients. Okay, you can delete clients. But most of them are being has been automatically generated, and I'll show you how. Okay, so we have from the PBX that we have installed on the lab, we have 5 extensions that are predefined to be remote in a VPN network. 2 of them, as you can see, are already connected. Here's the time of connection, and here's the IP address that has been assigned for the tunnel termination, or tunnel origination in this case. Okay, we have 3 additional ones that has not been used yet. Okay, so that covers this slide with this how to access the server configuration. Okay, how to do the settings for the server, and what I'm going to see on the client side for the server configuration. So next step is how I'm going to associate a specific VPN profiles or configurations to a specific users. And there are more than one way to do that. One is via what is called user groups. Let's say, for example, that you create a group. In this case, in the example, we're gonna have a group called VPN users, and the only thing that I need is to define the attributes for those users, enable VPN access for that group, and then just say who belongs to that specific group, and that is gonna allow you to automatically. This is the action that will trigger the internal process to generate the clients that we saw on the server configuration, those 5 specific clients. Okay, so if we see that on the interface, I go to modules, and then on the administration section, I have something called user management. Once I go to user management, I can go to groups. I already have created a group called VPN. And if I edit, just to show you what was configured, there is a tag here called VPN. The only thing that I need to do is on this tag, enable auto create and link. And this is the one that is going to trigger the process to generate the clients and that you can see and access on the server management interface. And the other thing is you just add which users belongs to this group. In our case, we have users 3006 extensions or users 3006 up to user 3010. These 5 users belong to the VPN. Let's say that they are remote extensions. Okay, that's one way to do it. If I go back, let me go back, user management, and instead of doing it through the groups, I can select a specific user. Let's say that I want to add this user 3002. I want to add him. I can just add him to the group, or I can manually enable VPN. You see that the typical users that are not belonging to that have not the attribute for VPN, it can be inherited from the group to which it belongs. But you can force the VPN attribute at the user level without paying any attention of the group. So those are the 2 ways you can associate which users will have VPN capability. Okay. This is through the user management and through the group management. Okay, that's the only. Yes.
Sorry, just a quick question that came up is I've been answering a lot of them, but one of them is, when you enable your VPN server on your FreePBX or your PBXact machine, it's going to be behind probably like a data firewall, right?
Yes.
And so there's probably, for your client to be able to access the VPN server, there's probably some ports that need to be opened up in that firewall. And people are asking what port number?
I'll show that. There is one slide showing that. Yeah, I'll show that. There is one slide that shows what specific ports needs to be open on the firewall between the firewall and the PBX.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, let me just. I'm going to jump to that specific slide and then I'll go back. And this slide is slide number 26. You're going to find specifically which ports are needed to be open. Okay. You need to open ports 83, TCP 83 to the 84, which are the provisioning ports. Okay. And you need to open, don't pay attention to the ones that says, you need to open, this is internally to allow traffic between the PBX and the on any device inside the network. But the ports are 83 to 84 TCP, the 1194 UDP, because that's the transport protocol and port that is used by OpenVPN. And optionally, you can open the 2001, which is the HTTP access to the GUI. Okay, but I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So those are the ports. Okay, with the previous slide, with this slide, we finished the configuration on the user side. Now we're going to need to do some configuration on the endpoint manager to be able to enable provisioning, auto provisioning of the phones, including not only the functionalities of the specific phone model for the specific extension, but also to enable the VPN client physically on the phone. Okay, so in order to do that, it's going to be kind of a little similar of what we did for the SRTP TLS on the previous session. We're going to create a copy of the default Sangoma profile, the template. Okay, and And the reason I'm doing that is because as a good practice, I recommend to keep the Sangoma default um, template not modified. And if you need variation of that template, you can just create a copy of it. Okay, and there is a process to do that I'll show you live right in a couple of seconds. Um, I'll show you right now. If we go to the endpoint manager, which is the application here on the settings section that allows you to manage all the provisioning of your phones. On the endpoint manager, if I select the brand of phones that I'm working with, in this case Sangoma, okay, you have the templates you have been creating. By default, there is only one out of the box, this one here. Okay, I already this was created in the previous session, and I already created one for VPN. But the way to create this one, the VPN, is just select the default and select the task tag, and there is an option here to duplicate. You say duplicate, you give the number, the name, and it will create a copy of the template. I'm not going to do that because it's already created. Okay, so this is the endpoint menu, the endpoint manager. I'm going to, one of the reasons why we are going to do this is because there is two specific attributes on the phone that I want to change. One of them is to enable the DHCP server inside the phone to be able to provide IP addresses to whatever you connect on the PC port, and also enable the router capability. So that is going to be the way it is going to route between the local LAN and the VPN tunnel. So in order to do that, there is an option here called base file edit. Base file edit is an option that allows you to modify low-level attributes of the phone, okay, that are not included on the GUI exposed parameters that are here on these different tags. There are hundreds and literally hundreds of values that you can control directly on the base file edit. I'm going to edit the Sangoma default VPN, okay, and in our case, all the same base file is common to all the phones models, from the S300 to the S700. So no matter which one you modify, you are modifying a common file for all the phones. So let me select, for example, S400, which, by the way, is a phone that we're going to announce very soon. Okay, so you can see those are all the attributes that are associated to a phone. Okay, there's hundreds of them. But in particular, we're going to, let me just expand this. No. Okay, I'm going to the end of the file just to show you the two attributes that we are going to change. They have been already changed. Is the attribute called the P231, which is associated to the PC port, how it's going to behave. If the value is 1, it's going to be bridge. If the value is 0, it's going to be a router. If the value is 2, it's going to be expansion module, whatever you want to connect there. So we're going to use the value 0. So it's going to be a router. And the DHCP server flag is the one that turns on or turns off the DHCP server inside the phone. So it's going to be 1. Okay. Any parameter that you change will be always shown as in red. That means that you change the value that came from by default. Okay, so you save this, and that's all. I'm not gonna save it because I already did. Okay, so going back to the slides. Okay, those are the parameters. So The good thing is you're gonna have a copy. As a matter of fact, if you go to the I don't remember if I downloaded it, but in any case, you're gonna get a copy of all these materials, so you're gonna have the guide on your hands. And okay, there are some other parameters that we are going to configure. One of them are the IP addresses of the global settings for the endpoint manager, and I'll show you exactly how. Global settings here, and then by default, he's gonna detect the IP addresses. I'm gonna write it down on those two parameters. But in any case, you can double check and confirm. Okay. So you can change some other parameters here, like for example, which is the master admin password for all the phones, which is the master user password for all the phones, and what is the receipt time for the phones to check configurations, etc. There are some other parameters. But with the default parameters, it's more than enough for us to show how it works. Okay. So if we open the template that we just created, let me go to the Sangoma. We created this default VPN. And now I am inside the configuration, right? The template configuration. Here you have several tags where you can change attributes. One specific attribute that you need to be sure is set up correctly is that this template is going to be used for provisioning external phones. And so we're going to select this is an external template. It's not going to be internal. It's going to be the external template. So we disable internal template and enable external template. Also, it's going to use as a zip destination address the internal address because any connected device, any connected endpoint will have access directly to the internal IP address, private IP address of the PBX. That's why we are using a VPN, right? And the other that you need to modify or make sure that is correctly set up is the provisioning address. The provisioning address will continue to be the external public IP address. And you want to use the custom option with the external IP address and the provisioning port that is always the 83, unless you change it. But by default, is the port 83. Okay. So nothing else needs to be done unless you want to customize some specific things like the time zone or options on the phone like screensaver or enable showing the contact photos or pictures. There are several parameters that you can configure directly here. Nothing on the redundancy side, nothing on the VLAN side, etc. Just for the intention of the demonstration. Maybe you need to change some of these parameters depending on your specific case. Okay. So, and the other thing is the question that was asked before is which ports I need to open on the firewall. Basically, port TCP 83 to 84 for provisioning, and port 1194 UDP, which is going to be the termination tunnel port. Anything else is just optional. For example, when you use PBXact, by default, when you install PBXact for the first time or you do the activation, the HTTP access is going to be 2001. That port allows not only to access the GUI interface, but also to access the UCP interface. You may want to not open the port and enforce that anyone trying to access the UCP as a user control panel needs to be connected before to the VLAN, otherwise to the VPN. Otherwise, he is not going to have access. That's a decision, a design decision, or a security decision. Okay. Okay. One thing that this is a recommendation. This is not mandatory, But when you are doing first-time deployment, sometimes you make mistakes, and sometimes you generate kind of a registration attempts that are wrong, and then the intrusion detection, which is a capability that is already built in on the PBX, will assume that somebody is trying to access the PBX, and the PBX is going to ban that IP address. So I usually add the pool, the VPN pool address as part of the whitelist. Sorry, as part of the whitelist. But that's a recommendation only. Okay, let's see now the client setup. There's two ways when you are setting up the client. I mean, in other words, when you are doing the provisioning per se, there is two different possible scenarios. One scenario is the endpoint manager doesn't have a clue about the phone that is about to be provisioned, or the endpoint manager knows at least the extension number that can be provisioned through a given phone. Okay, but I don't know exactly which phone, which model, which MAC address. I know there is an extension that could be associated to a phone that is going to be provisioned sometime in the future. So this flow diagram shows you how it works. So when you take a phone out of the box and you connect it to the LAN, the first thing the phone is going to do is going to try to look for an IP address. It's going to send a request, there are packets to get an IP address from a DHCP server. Okay. Once the IP address is assigned, the first thing it's going to check is if there is a option 66 enabled to know where my provisioning server is. If there is not option 66, then the phone is going to try the redirection server provided by Sangoma. It's a default FQDN where all the phones will at the last try to find out if somebody there knows where the provision server is. But if you are not using redirection, the only thing you need to do is to make sure that the provisioning server is provided via option 66 to the phone. Once that is provided, it's going to ask the phone is going to ask to the provisioning server if there is any configuration for him based on the MAC address. If yes, then it's going to load the configuration file. But if not, it's going to create a default configuration, and it's going to start the phone with a login prompt. It's something like this. I'll show you right now. I have a live phone here. Let me just make it. Okay. This phone was a factory reset. There is no traces of the MAC address on the endpoint manager right now. In other words, if I go to the endpoint manager now, let me just, here is something called the extension mapping. The extension mapping is the table of all the devices or extensions that the endpoint manager knows. Okay, so while it is displayed, so I'll show you the phone here. As you can see, you have two options here: login internal, login external. And as this phone is in a branch office, the user usually will click on the login external, and then the phone is going to ask for the extension number and password. And you may ask yourself, okay, which password is the zip password? No, the password that is going to be used here is the voicemail password for that extension. Okay, or you can use the master administration password. Okay, so let me go back to the extension mapping, and the extension mapping usually shows all the provisioned or to be provisioned extensions. In this case, we have three extensions already provisioned or to be provisioned. In this case, we have extension 3006 and 007. They have been already provisioned. they are at this moment live. They are connected and online, and you can see that they are using IP addresses assigned by the VPN tunnel. Okay, so those are the IP addresses assigned to the phones via the VPN. Those are, this is an S700, this is an S300, etc. So I want to show you here these little buttons here that are used to change some parameters of the phone. One of them, I'll show you one here, is this parameter here called VPN client. Okay, and by default there is no VPN client selected. By default, the first time you provision the phone, this is going to be a none. But once you select and you see that the pull down only shows the 3006 because that's the one that was assigned to that user. Okay, so you see one extension here, the 30009, that is not logged in, has never been, is not an unknown IP address at this moment. And I can see here that there is no VPN selected. Okay, and that's the reason. So let me show you something else. Here I have the 4 phones that I have on the network. 3 of them are already registered. This one, you see the MAC address is 500097, is not here. Okay, and that is exactly this phone here, right? Okay, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try to provision this phone, the 3010, extension 3010, and the password is going to be 1234, done. You're going to see what happened now. So it's loading the configuration. Okay, already load all the configuration, and he detected that VPN is going to be used, and he needs to reboot the phone. The phone is going to be rebooted. While the phone is rebooted, I'm going to refresh the extension mapping. Okay, it's going to take it takes a couple minutes of the process. I don't know, Frederick, if there is any question that I can be addressing while we're waiting this.
One question that comes up often is the what
you
protocol?
See, hold on. You see,
yeah.
It's booting and it's saying LAN type router mode. You see, it detected that it's going to be a router and not a bridge. The default value is a bridge. It's retrieving configurations from the provision IP address, etc. So you can watch while we talk. Go ahead, Frederick.
Yeah. One question that is asked often is what encryption, what protocol are we using between the client and the server? You know, PP2P. There's a few of those, right?
No, that's SSL. SSL. I think it's SSL version 2 and version 3.
Okay. Okay.
No, it's not PPTP. No, not L2TP. No, none of those.
Okay.
It's what is called an SSL VPN.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So it rebooted already. The network side is already configured, but still the VPN client is not there. Okay. So I don't see any signal. The phone is not registered. Registration is not happening. And the reason is because now the MAC address is there. Remember the 0097? Okay. But the problem is that the VPN client has not been selected. So I'm going to select the VPN client. I'm going to apply. It's going to take a few seconds. So while we do that, I'll show you how was the phone before the configuration, the provisioning happened. Okay, the status of the phone was already, he already, when it showed the login, he already knew where the provisioning server is located, okay, because he already got it from the DHCP server. But there is, from the IP point of view, there is no information regarding a VPN. Let me show you a phone that is already provisioned. This phone, this is an S700 that I have here in the lab, and you can see that on the IP version 4 settings, it's already saying that has a VPN address 10.8015, okay? And also, I can see that the PC port, it's asking me for the login again. The PC port was configured as a router. Okay, it was configured as a router. And let me just, okay. And also, the DHCP server is enabled. You see here? Let me just get the phone again. Okay. This is the phone. I already did the update on the endpoint manager to associate the VLAN, the VPN. And what I need to do now, this is the first tag here. This is my phone. Is just to reboot the phone. You can do it on the keyboard or you can do it on the... I'm going to reboot the phone. The phone is going to reboot now. Okay, it will take a couple minutes. Let me show you a few more things on the phones. This is a provisioning phone. And this one, this other S500 is not provisioned. Okay, so the network, the PC port, has been already set up, but the VPN client hasn't been loaded. If I check on network, I think it's basic. No, it's in advanced. Okay, VPN is not enabled. You see here. But if I check a phone that has been already provisioned with the client, and I check advanced networking, I'm going to see that it's already active, the VPN. So, the phone is rebooting now. Okay, while it finishes, let me go back to the... In case you don't know, but most of you, I'm pretty sure, know how to do it. I just put an example of how to do the option 66 configuration in a MikroTik. Yeah, those are the different screens. You need to create the option 66 here on the options tag. You need to, on the DHCP server configuration, enable DHCP options and select the option that you want to provide when the IP is assigned to the phone from the pool. Okay, another thing that we can show while this is finishing. Okay, I already mentioned, let me just update this one. I just want to finish the first time setup of the VPN takes some time on the booting process and loading the configuration. Okay. Now you see that it's VPN activated. The phone is already VPN connected. It shows the log here to confirm that the VPN is up and running, and already the extension 3010 is provisioned and registered. Okay. So let me check something here. Okay, I'm going to show you something interesting. Okay, I have, let me see if this works. I have a TeamViewer. I have a laptop that is connected to the PC port on the phone, the same phone that you are looking right now. This is the computer that next to Surface. Okay, I'm connected to that specific laptop. Let's see if it connects. That was not part of the presentation, but I like it to show. Let me just. No, it got disconnected. Anyway, yes. Okay, in any case, I can show. Yeah, somehow I got disconnected and I would. Yeah, okay. I'm going to reboot the phone again. That happened to me the other day. You have a network issue here, but in any case, I'm just going to show the phone. Status is already provisioned. This is the IP address on the tunnel. Okay, it's registered. You see that he automatically did the configuration to put the primary SIP server the destination IP address on the tunnel, which is the PBX. It's the 10801. Okay, here are the credentials. The network PC port is already configured for providing DHCP. It's acting as a router. And, let me just. Okay, let's see if it comes back. If it comes back. In any case, okay. There is a second method that you can use to provision the phones. You can create on the endpoint manager on the extension mapping here. Let's say that you want to instead of waiting for the phone to try to get the configuration for the first time from the extension mapping, I can just add, let's say, extension. I have the 6.7. Okay, I don't have the 8. I'm going to create extension 8 for account number 1. I'm going to select the brand Sangoma, and I'm going to select the template VPN. Have you see, I have not associated any MAC address. What I'm creating is the specific entry on the table. Let me just save it for extension 3008 without knowing exactly which phone is going to be that one. I don't know even what is the model, if it is a S300 or 500 or 700, and I don't even know the MAC address. Okay. But as you remember, when you log in for the first time on the phone, you identify yourself with a extension number, and that's how the provisioning is going to check on this table if I have an extension number that is not being provisioned yet. And then it's going to associate the MAC address of this new phone, and it's going to load the configuration from the template. Let's wait until he saves. You are about. Okay. Yeah, I had to reboot the phone. I don't know what happened, but in any case, coming back. So I reboot the phone how you see it before, how you saw before, and now I have a way to. You are about to enter an echo test. In this mode, everything you say will be repeated back. Okay, that's an IVR for echo test. Okay. So the phone is working, and okay, the laptop is coming back. Let me see if I can get it now. No, I have a problem with the client. Okay. Anyway. So it's already provisioned. I can just dial. Yeah, every time I plug in the laptop, it shuts down. So I have to check what happened there. I have a networking issue. But in any case, if I go back to the PowerPoint, okay, this is basically what we saw. This is what we did to associate the client to the specific entry. Okay, and this is how it looks like after it's already registered on the extension mapping. We already saw this, that is configured as a router. Yes, the SCP is enabled. And now the other thing that I want to show you is, let me see if I have access to the UCP here. The UCP can be accessed through this interface. You can just go directly to the IP address of the or the domain name, okay, /UCP. Okay, it's asking me to register again. This is the I think it's the 2006. What I wanted to show you here is this. This is the interface for the user. Okay, there is a tag here called VPN access. Okay, on the VPN access is going to have, this is what we call the self-service option. And you can enable or disable this on the user management. You can have access to the VPN clients in order for the where it opened, VPN client software here. Then it takes you to our wiki page, and then you have the Android client setup, Linux client setup, Mac client setup, and Windows client setup. You can go through those links and set up your specific client. Here it's going to show you all the credentials that has been associated to this user, the user that just logged in on the user control panel. By default, when we create this user as a VPN user, it's going to create one set of credentials. But if you add additional credentials, all those credentials will be shown here. And you can just download you can download the configuration file. This is a standard OpenVPN configuration file that you can download on your folder or directory for your Open VPN client on your device. Let's say your laptop or your computer or your cell phone or whatever. Okay. So if you need more clients credential for a specific user, you can create it on the server administration, VPN server administration. Okay, as I mentioned before, you go here and you go here. System admin, VPN server, and then client. You can start adding additional clients here, and you can associate those clients. Let's say you create a client here, and if you go to the user, on the user management, and you go, let's say, to the user 3006, and go to the VPN, you can add additional clients here. So if I add this one here, this one will show up on the control. This control, it will show up here as a list. Okay. Okay. So in summary, VPN is an alternative solution to secure remote access, user access into our IP infrastructure, IPPBX infrastructure. FreePBX and PBXact VPN also adds integration for customer workstation via the PC port or via managed second VPN client. It is very simple and almost fully automated with Sangoma phones. It's fully integrated into the GUI interface, the administration interface on the PBX. All encryption and totally takes additional resources from the PBX. That's a thing that you have to take in account when you are dimensioning the specific hardware on top of which the PBX is going to be installed. And using third-party phones is also possible, but it's not as straightforward. There are some limitations. There are some manual actions that you need to do in order to activate the VPN client. Just to remind that the next session is on January 24th, and we're going to be addressing the TLS SRTP built-in on the PBX.
So great. Thank you all. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks a lot for attending. Be sure to register to the next webinar, the part 3 of 3 of this exciting series, and hope to see you in great numbers next time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Ernesto.
You. Thank you.
Thank you.